23-year-old with a stable paycheck, just spent 3 months of savings on a 2-week trip to Bali. Her older sister, 34, refuses to buy a coffee she didn't budget for on a spreadsheet. Same family, same upbringing, completely different relationship with money. How does that happen? Most people blame this on generational laziness or generational paranoia, depending on which side you're standing on. Millennials call Gen Z reckless. Gen Z calls millennials trapped. But neither side is actually wrong about what they're seeing. They're just wrong about why it's happening. Because this isn't really a story about spending habits. It's a story about two generations who came of age inside two completely different economic realities and built two completely different survival strategies as a result. And understanding that gap tells you something bigger about how all of us actually form our beliefs about money. Here's the common belief. People assume financial behavior is mostly personality. Some people are just savers. Some people are just spenders. It feels intuitive because it lines up with how we talk about money at the dinner table. But personality theory falls apart the moment you look at the timing. Millennials graduated into the 2008 financial crisis, or the years right after it. They watched stable industries lay off thousands overnight. They watched homes get foreclosed on people who did everything right. The lesson that got burned into their psychology wasn't spend less. It was something deeper. The system can betray you even when you follow the rules. So many millennials responded by trying to outplan the chaos. Building emergency funds, chasing stability, treating financial security like a fortress to defend. Gen Z watched something different unfold. They came of age during a pandemic that shut down the entire global economy in weeks, while watching stock markets and home prices somehow keep climbing anyway. They entered a job market where the traditional path, degree, entry-level job, slow promotion, house by 30, increasingly didn't lead anywhere close to what it used to. If the fortress strategy didn't even work for the generation ahead of them, why would they trust it? So a new belief formed. If long-term stability feels unreachable, then meaning now becomes the rational bet. That's not recklessness. That's a generation doing cost-benefit analysis on a system that looks broken from where they're standing. This is where the story gets interesting, because you can actually see this exact psychological split play out inside a completely unrelated industry: travel and experiences. Think about how airlines and experience-based companies changed their marketing over the last decade. They stopped selling destinations. They started selling identity. Live for the story. You only get one life. That messaging didn't appear by accident. It was built by companies who noticed a generation was more responsive to experiential spending than to the traditional promise of save now, enjoy later. Meanwhile, the entire booming industry of budgeting apps, side hustle courses, and financial independence content exploded around the same time, largely built for an audience desperate to regain a sense of control after watching the previous decade's stability disappear. Two completely different industries, two completely different generations, both being fed exactly what their economic trauma was primed to want. Now here's the twist most people miss. It's easy to frame this as millennials being smart with money and Gen Z being bad with money. But look closer and the picture flips. Millennials on average are more likely to carry long-term debt tied to trying to keep up with a lifestyle they were told they'd earned. Houses bought at the top of a market. Cars financed to project stability they didn't yet have. Meanwhile, many in Gen Z are quietly more debt-averse than people assume, because they watched debt destroy people close to them. The generation labeled impulsive is often more allergic to being trapped by a monthly payment than the generation labeled responsible. Which means the real difference isn't discipline. It's what each generation is afraid of. Millennials fear instability. Gen Z fears wasted time. Both fears are rational responses to what they lived through. Both fears can also become traps. Because here's the psychological insight underneath all of this. Humans don't actually make financial decisions based on the economy in front of them. We make financial decisions based on the economy that shaped us when we were young and forming our first beliefs about safety. That imprint doesn't update easily, even when circumstances change. A millennial who is now financially secure can still feel poor. A Gen Z earner who is doing well can still feel like saving is pointless. The wiring happened early, and the present moment struggles to override it. This is also why arguments about money between generations rarely go anywhere. When a parent tells their 20-something to just save more, they're not offering advice. They're offering a strategy built for a world that no longer fully exists. And when a younger person says, money won't buy me happiness anyway, they're not being careless. They're defending a worldview built to protect them from chasing a security that felt unreachable. So what actually breaks the cycle? Not another lecture about budgeting. What breaks it is recognizing that both instincts contain a piece of the truth. The instinct to plan for instability is valuable. The instinct to not sacrifice your entire life waiting for a someday that keeps moving is also valuable. The healthiest financial behavior isn't found in either generation's default setting. It's found in borrowing the best instinct from both. Because money was never just math. It's a mirror of the fears we inherited from the years that shaped us. And the moment you can see that mirror clearly, you stop judging how someone else spends, and you start understanding why you spend the way you do too. If this changed how you think about the money habits around you, you already know someone this applies to, maybe even yourself. What's one money belief you picked up from the world you grew up in that you're still not sure is actually true? Drop it in the comments. I read everyone.